So the Rosetta meta has you looking at rune chants for your future playstyle of Flesh and Blood. But you're not quite sure where to start. You know there are a lot of rune blades around, but which one really fits your playstyle? You can look at the top meta and see that Aurora is doing really well, but there is another rune blade that is doing very, very well, and believe it or not, is incredibly cheap to build. Let's go ahead and talk about the next installment in the $100 Hero series as we build Viserai Runeblood. Welcome on in, my Ashwings. It is such a pleasure to see you all here today. It is more $100 Hero. That's right. You guys really enjoyed our Dorinthia $100 Hero, so I wanted to make sure that I committed to making sure you guys saw every hero I could bring to life in this series and give people hope. You know, let them know that it's super cheap to still play Flesh and Blood, although $100 is still a bit of an ask for some people, but $100 is incredibly cheap compared to what most decks are, especially at that high level play. So what I wanted to talk about today is none other than Viserai. Viserai is the original Runeblade, and honestly has been kind of down in the dumps for quite a few metas recently. But with the release of Rosetta, we have seen a resurgence in Viserai players and people going about trying to make the most craziest aggro build you could find with Viserai. And I'm very, very happy to be playing a deck like this. Like, I adore Viserai. I think that Viserai is a super, super cool hero. I think his edgelord ability is just out of this world. He looks like he should be a Shadow Runeblade, but he's not. He's just a Runeblade. And if you guys didn't know, also hails from Volcor. So if that makes you ever wonder why he's my favorite, that's definitely it. So without further ado, let's talk about what Viserai does and what our deck is planning to do with Viserai. So Runeblades, you may have seen, create rune chants. Rune chants are a way to deal arcane damage to your opponent, but instead of it being in one big chunk of arcane, instead it's in small little pings of arcane. You can find ways to stack these rune chants together, and then you go and tackle your opponent with a whole bunch of rune chants on your next attack and really kind of give them that option to either block out a lot of that arcane damage of those rune chants or worry about the physical damage that might present a disruptive on hit if it does hit their opponent. So it is really, really effective in making sure to kind of squeeze in some damage here and there. And Viserai is really great at making rune chants. Believe it or not, and this might not be something, you know, that you'll realize initially, because most heroes get a once per turn effect in most cases. Viserai's ability can happen essentially for the entirety of your chain. Because what he says is that whenever you play a Runeblade card, if you have played another non-attack action card this turn, create a rune chant token. So anytime you start your turn with a non-attack action, and then every Runeblade card you play after that non-attack action creates you a rune chant. So when you attack with something and you have a stack of rune chants, those rune chants will pop, the attack will go through, and then Viserai will make another rune chant in the back end to be used on the next attack or just to save it for their next turn if that's something they're looking to do too. So it's a very aggressive play style of pushing a bunch of this damage through, but also there's some mid-range to it because you do have defense reactions and you do still kind of want to build these chants. You have disruptive on-hits in some of your cards, and so it really is trying to find that balance between what works and what doesn't. So Viserai is incredibly powerful in the regards of just kind of mixing in that arcane and that physical damage, and that's why he is a favorite amongst a lot of Runeblade heroes. So obviously with Viserai only being $100 in this current version of $100 Hero, that's what we do. We make the hero cost $100 and we kind of make it as viable as we possibly can to a more competitive leaning version of the deck. In this situation, we have done just that because luckily most of the cards in a super competitive Viserai deck are common and rare. So keep that in mind. But we'll start off with our weapon. The weapon is going to be Reaping Blade. Now, the good news here is that unlike some of the other rune blades that exist in the game right now, we don't want to heal at all. I mean, if we had the opportunity to heal, that would be awesome. But at the end of the day, we really just want to have a weapon that you can pay one leftover resource for after going wide on a chain, and then swinging in for a decent amount of damage, right? Rosetta Thorn was the original weapon that Viserai was using before Briar got hit Living Legend, but Reaping Blade does the job here too, because we do have a lot of heroes now, especially with Count Your Blessings and Verdance and Florian, that do heal quite frequently. And if they are healing, well, this stops them from being able to do that. The only downside is that the hero has to have more health than you do, which means that you might be wanting to take a little bit of hits there to kind of get yourself just below your opponent's life total, and then you can come in with a whole bunch of attacks to bring their life total down, and you got to keep that kind of parity there. So it's not so much about true life parity to stop your opponent from healing. It's more so just the effectiveness of being able to pay one resource to attack for 3. So that's the real deal with Reaping Blade here. Next up, we are running in this $100 build, a legendary, right? We've snuck in a legendary here, Crown of Dominion. Crown of Dominion is about $45 right now. And I mean, with cash in being banned, we're not going to see anything any value wise there. But Crown of Dominion, the reason it's being played in Viserai, even though it doesn't block and it doesn't have any additional like effect towards rune blades, Crown of Dominion allows you to create a gold at the beginning of your turn, or at the beginning of the game, I should say. It allows you to create a gold at the beginning of the game when this is equipped. That gold will be incredibly valuable later on in the game when you eventually run into what the community likes to call the Rune Blade hand. Because in most cases you want non-attacks and attacks, but sometimes you get all non-attacks or you get all attacks. And this is where Crown of Dominion comes in. You can pitch some of those cards in your hand for those Rune Blade hands where you have all non-attacks or all attacks. You can pay those into this gold to destroy it and then draw a card. So therefore, you're able to search for one more card, see about fixing your hand, and it works out super well in regards to making sure that you have those off turn. You're not really finding an off turn if you're always running Crown of Dominion. So very good legendary. There are things that you can choose to just like block with instead, but Crown of Dominion is super great. Aether Ironweave, we don't have access to Fyendal Spring Tunic at $100 build, or to Dyadic Carapace at $100 build, so Aether Ironweave is our next best bet. It's still an incredibly powerful chess piece for it being a common. You destroy this, you gain 2 resources, but only after you've played a non-attack and an attack, which you're normally going to do. So having 2 additional resources will certainly help if you're going to play something like an additional Shrill of Skull form, or you're going to come in with a more powerful 2 block, you need 2 resources to attack with a couple more cards. Aether Ironweave is going to be able to do that for you. And it's got Battle Worn 1, so you still get to block 1 damage off of it. We are running a Vexen Quill hand. This is mainly just to, one, have an Arcane Barrier option, but also to be able to just create 2 more additional rune chants to kind of make our opponents really determine how they want to block, right? Because if you're stacking rune chants in most cases, Vexen Quill hand really helps because it gets an additional 2. It doesn't cost you anything to do it. And then you get to go ahead and swing in with a whole bunch of rune chants and make your opponent go, oh, do I want to block rune chants or do I want to just block this physical damage coming in? So Vexen Quill hand's very good. Sutcliffe Suede Hide is just a one-time Spellbound Creepers that doesn't block. It's significantly worse than Spellbound Creepers, but Spellbound Creepers is like $150 right now. So don't go out and buy that if you don't have the money for it. Just play Sutcliffes instead. As a matter of fact, in the upgrade build for this, I still am not running Spellbound Creepers. I'm still running Sutcliffe because it's just like the price difference is just so insane. And you only really get like 1 good turn to use Spellbound Creepers. And then at that point, you just block with it. It is a very rare situation in which Spellbound Creepers, the legendary foot piece for Runeblade, gets used twice. So that's why I think Sutcliffe Suede Hide is really good. I think it does the job as far as, what it needs to do. It just essentially gives your attack that doesn't have go again initially go again, and you'll be able to continue that chain into doing other things there. So that's our armor suite here. Let's go ahead and talk about the deck. So I haven't done anything in regards to like sideboard or anything of the sort. It's mainly just kind of showing what is inside the deck. Sideboard is pretty understandable depending on your playstyle. If you're going against wizards, you're going to want to take out some of the defense reactions. If you're going against decks that like to block a lot, you might want to not play as many tall attacks and instead play as many go wide attacks as you can. So those are the kind of thought processes whenever you're making this deck. But we'll start it off. We have 3 Amplify the Arknight red and 3 blue. The card's just really good even at blue because it's at most cases a 0 for 4, block 3. But even if in most cases you're probably just pitching or blocking with this, and then maybe you have an opportunity later on in the game to actually use it. Same goes with Amplify the Arknight. This is just a nice closer. If you happen to be able to get 3 rune chants at the end of your turn, right, and still have an action point, you can just play Amplify the Arknight for free, and then go about dealing an additional 6 damage. There's no real on hit or anything, but being able to play your attacks for free is really, really good. This is effectively Runegate, but not really. So it's Runegate light. Deadwood Dirge is a non-attack action that we're playing in here. Deadwood Dirge is just crazy good. You can destroy any of your rune chants to create 3 rune chants. So you're effectively making 2 rune chants with this. It's got Go Again. It's a Rune Blade card, so you'll make another rune chant on top of that if you've already used a non-attack action with Viserai. Very, very effective. I love the card. Hit the high note. In most cases, you're going to be making an aura, which means that this is just a very simple 1 cost 6. And it blocks for 3. Like you really can't expect much better than that. Malefic Incantations, card's insane. Literally just like play the card and you are in for a great time. It works itself out. You play Malefic Incantation, you attack, you create 2 rune chants on the back end, 1 from Malefic Incantation and then 1 from Viserai. Now you have 2 rune chants on the back end for your next attack, and then you just keep on tacking them on until eventually you're at a point where you're slinging arcane like nobody's business. We are running Mauvrin Skies here, so Mauvrin Skies red and blue. Mauvrin Skies is pretty good to allow some of these go tall attacks to get go again, so that way you can attack with your Reaping Blade or you can attack with another attack action that you have in your hand. But more importantly, Mauvrin Skies also threatens a on hit on an attack that might not normally have it, because if Mauvrin Skies it gives a card or an attack action go again, and then if it hits, you create rune chants. 3 rune chants for the red, 1 rune chant for the blue. In most cases, the reds are going to be what people are going to block. The blues might not be blocked as often, but it's really that go again that's really important. And you're playing a non-attack action that allows you to turn on Viserai's ability. Next up, we do have the Meet and Greet. Now, this is a card only because I think this card works out really well. It's a 1 for 4 block 3, so it's fairly on rate for what we would like it to be. If it hits, create a rune chant, and if you've dealt arcane damage, it'll get go again. So it's another go wide opportunity for you. In most cases, people are going to take like 1 rune chant, and if they have taken 1 rune chant, this will immediately get go again, and then if it hits, you get a rune chant on top of it too. So stacking rune chants is nice. Very effective, super cheap card. Mordred Tide we were able to get in here. This is a very nice starter to your chain, because effectively until the end of the turn, if you would create a rune chant token, you would create that many plus 1, which means that if you have a Malefic Incantation out and you play Mordred Tide, when you play Mordred Tide and then you attack, you'll go ahead and you'll get 2 rune chants from Malefic Incantation and then 2 rune chants from Viserai. So it's already an additional 0 for 4 attack pretty much for the cost of 1 card. And you're able to throw that at your opponent in the next turn. And then anytime you activate Viserai's ability, instead of creating 1 rune chant, it creates 2, which is super awesome. So very, very nice. It blocks for 3 also, which is effective, and it costs nothing to play. We love to see it. Read the Runes. This card is mainly as a backup plan. Read the runes. If you have nothing else to do at the end of your turn, you can always, instead of attacking with Reaping Blade, you can play Read the Runes. Read the Runes will go ahead and give you 3 Rune Chant tokens, but it doesn't have Go Again. So it is unfortunate. There's no real Eloquence tokens or anything you can do here in Viserai. But Read the Runes is still like, you know, if you've got nothing left and the only thing you can do is make 3 Rune Chant tokens, whatever, right? That's chill. Rune Chant tokens are what you want to make, because even if you're able to do that and you can start your next turn with like a Mauvrin Skies into an Amplify the Arknight with Go Again, that's a pretty good turn, I would say. That's 9 damage, Go Again, on hit, create 3 Rune Chants, maybe do it again. So very, very nice. So Read the Runes is kind of just a Rune Chant generation. It's great to sit in the arsenal too. So that is good. Revel in Runeblood we were able to get in here as well. Revel in Runeblood is a very nice attack, or really it's a nice action, because what it does is after you've played a non-attack and then an attack with Go Again, preferably, you can then play Revel in Runeblood, create 4 more Rune Chants, and then just attack with something else and get those 4 Rune Chants out. The only downside is that if you end your turn with any Rune Chants, they will be destroyed because of Revel in Runeblood. So make sure to get all of your Rune Chants out. Try to end your turn on a weapon swing or something of the sort, because if you play a Rune Blade card and you attack with it, then you're going to make a Rune Chant from Viserai's ability, and then it's going to be destroyed. So make sure that you're utilizing every single point of Rune Chant damage you can get in, and Revel in Runeblood will be super effective for you. Rune Flash is awesome. This is, again, kind of a free card almost. It's a 0 for 4 in most cases, because you play it, it costs X less based on the amount of Rune Chants you have. So 1 resource less, it'll cost 0 if you have 3 Rune Chants, and it has Go Again. So this will come in for 4 damage, 3 Arcane, Go Again into your next ability, which will then, you know, tack on to itself. So Rune Flash, very powerful. It also blocks for 3, which is why we're also running the blues. The card's just good, especially in this kind of more aggressive style of deck. We're also running our Runeblood incantations. These work a lot like Malefic Incantation, except these they cost 1 to play, and at the beginning of your turn, you automatically make a Rune Chant. So that's just a way to add more Rune Chants onto that back end there, but it's a great way to just present a lot more damage to your opponent, and it gives you another Runeblade Go Again action to play. Moving on to Rune Rager Swarm. This is a new card from Rosetta. Who would have thought this card would have made such an impact as it did? Essentially, if you've played or created an aura this turn, you get Go Again. So you can play any of your non-attack actions, like let's say Deadwood Dirge, and you'll create auras in that route. You can play Mordred Tide. Mordred Tide says that, you know, you create a Rune Chant, but it's a Runeblade non-attack action, which means that when you play Rune Rager Swarm, you attack with it, and then you create an aura with Viserai's ability. And when you create an aura with Viserai's ability, that allows for Rune Rager Swarm to get Go Again. So effectively a nice way to kind of increase the chain. Again, it blocks for 3. This is just value. We like seeing this. Next up on our list, we have Shrill of Skullform. Shrill of Skullform is a pretty great 2-cost attack. You know, it's literally just a slightly more expensive hit the high notes, except this comes in for a much more terrifying breakpoint. So Shrill of Skullform costs 2, but if you played an or created an aura this turn, it gets +3. So you simply can go ahead and play Mauvrin Skies for 0, pitch a blue to come in with Shrill of Skullform. You have 1 floating. This comes in for 7, plus any Rune Chants you already have. Plus it has Go Again, and if it hits, create 3 Rune Chant tokens. If you do have it hit and it creates Rune Chant tokens, you can pay that 1 floating resource to attack with your Reaping Blade for 3 and 3 Rune Chants, effectively doing what? That's 7, 6, 13 damage with a couple cards. Like, that's pretty good. So I like that a lot. Shrill Skullform is just good. You can even pair it with Hit the High Notes, right? Theoretically, you can do Malvern Skies into Shrill Skullform into Hit the High Notes because you're going to be making rune chants off of Viserai. So you're looking at a lot of damage there, even if you just have a Hit the High Notes to follow that up. Very beautiful combo, right? Shrill into Hit the High Notes. That's just music to my ears. Another card we're going to be running here is Sigil of Suffering. Sigil of Suffering is a defense reaction. If you block with it in the defense reactions, it will deal 1 arcane damage to the attacking hero. And if you have dealt arcane damage this turn, which if you're defending, you probably haven't, but if this deals arcane damage to your opponent, let's say they just don't want to worry about it, it will block for 4. So it's effectively a Sink Below that also deals 1 damage to your opponent. If they decide to block out that damage, it just blocks for 3. But even still, it's a defense reaction. It'll help you out when you need it. Speaking of defense reactions, we also have Sink Below. This is another great way for you to fix those Runeblade hands. If you happen to block with something, you take a card from your hand. If you have 4 non-attack actions, you go ahead and take one of those non-attack actions that you know you don't need, put it to the bottom of your deck, draw a card, and hope for an attack action. So Sink Below is really great into that. Sonata Arcanix. This card, if you have never played a Runeblade before, more specifically, if you've never played Viserai, you don't know what kind of pain this card gives people, but it is something that is still run in every Viserai deck. And that's because Sonata Arcanix is just, like, when it works so good. But when it doesn't, you nearly lose like 2 turns worth of a game. Because Sonata Arcanix, you can reveal the top X plus 3 cards of your deck. It does cost XX. So if you do pitch, you'd have to pitch 4 in order for X to be 2. That makes sense. But most people don't pitch at all because it's X plus 3. So even if you just play this out for 0, it's still that plus 3. So for each non-attack action card revealed this way, you can put an attack action card revealed this way into your hand, then deal arcane damage to target hero equal to the number of cards put into your hand this way. So in this situation, you want kind of an equal split. It allows you to get those attack actions into your hand to continue for a longer chain. And then it also allows you to deal some arcane damage on top of the fact of putting those non-attack actions back in your deck. And then you get to shuffle. So keeps things a little bit more in line with trying to make sure you're not running into those Runeblade hands. But sometimes you play this and you play it for nothing. You reveal the top 3 cards of your deck and it's 3 non-attack actions. You wasted your turn in most cases. There's still like nearly nothing that can be done, especially if you have an all non-attack action hand. If you had attack actions, it'd be different, but if you had non-attack actions, it's just unfortunate. You can't really do anything about that. So be careful with this card, but it's got beautiful art, so always good. The next thing to also fix these Runeblade hands is become the Arknight. This is a Viserai specialization. It costs 0. It's a blue. It blocks 3. All good things that we like to see from blues. But more importantly, what it does is it allows you to take a card that's either a non-attack action or an attack action, and then you get to go ahead and search your deck for the opposite. So you discard a non-attack action, you get to search your deck for a Runeblade attack action, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Same goes for attack actions and then looking for non-attacks. So again, this is kind of fixing those Runeblade hands, allowing you to make sure that you're able to utilize your hand in the best route possible with, non-attacks and then also attacks. And then Vexing Malice, believe it or not, a great finisher for this game, because Vexing Malice costs 1, comes in for 1 physical damage, and then also deals 2 arcane damage to target hero. And if there are like 3 rune chants on the back end here, if your opponent's only playing AB1, because you're only playing rune chants, which can be blocked with Arcane Barrier 1, Vexing Malice comes in for 2 arcane. So if you can't block out the additional point of arcane, then you're donezo. You take that additional 1 damage from Vexing Malice, and then it's also coming in for physical. It's a very like super split card, and then again, it blocks for 3. That's what we like to see. But let's move into the inventory. Nothing here except just making sure that we are we're worried about arcane damage, right? So we have Amethyst Tiara, which, believe it or not, is like $1 Majestic. I don't know what situation this will come up in, but in most cases, if you have Rune Chance, you can, if your opponent's coming in for a big, powerful spell, and you want to Spell Void some of that, you can destroy your Rune Chance to have Spell Void 1. It's super cool, right? Because it allows you to just like figure out how many Rune Chance you want to sacrifice to prevent some Arcane. So if you happen to stack a decent amount of Rune Chance up, if you have like 6, this is practically AB6 for the turn. And then you just get to make more Rune Chance. So very powerful. And it's got Blade Break 1. So it's helpful into any physical attacks. And then we run the Null Rune Boots and the Null Rune Robe for the chest and the legs. This is just a full Arcane package to make sure you are all set for when Arcane happens. But in most cases, you're not going to be running these. You're probably going to be just running these guys up here. So that is the case there. And then, of course, like we talked about gold, but Rune Chance, how they work is whenever you play an attack action card or you attack with a weapon, you destroy however many Rune Chance are currently live, and they deal 1 arcane damage to target opposing hero. They all trigger in different layers. So if you have 5 Rune Chants, each Rune Chant comes in for 1 damage individually. So keep that in mind. Your opponent might say, I take all 5. That's not them taking 5 at the same time. So if you have any triggers that come up or anything of the sort, if you want to play some instants in the middle of that, you can do that. But just keep in mind that they do all trigger they all trigger individually from one another. And that is important if you're trying to like do a lot of the crazier stuff with it. So that is effectively Viserai at $100. We'll double check this here. Obviously, the prices are due to change at some point here, depending. It might go lower, it might go higher. But what we're looking at here, the most expensive card in the deck is Crown of Dominion at $41. The 3 Revelin Rune Bloods are about $27. Outside of that, getting a playset of every one of these cards is under $10. And if we look down here, $97 before shipping is what we are looking at for this deck at its lowest rarity. So that's great. That's what we want. That is what we want out of this deck. That is $100 that you can put towards a hyper meta deck in the format right now. But let's say you wanted to upgrade it. You wanted to do a little bit more to it. Maybe it's just not feeling spicy enough. You feel like you could add more disruption. You know, maybe the new Majestics that came out from Rosetta are really catching your eye and you really want to utilize those in a deck. Well, let's move on to our $450 version of the deck. Now it says $500 here, but I'll go ahead and show you. It is about $450 down here before shipping. But again, this price is due to change. This is our upgraded version of the deck. For an additional $350, you can make this version of the deck, which is a little bit more competitive, not fully tuned to where we'd like it, because again, Spellbound Creepers is a card that we'd like to see. Maybe even Crown of Providence is a card we'd like to see, but you'll see that we made quite a few changes here in regards to our versions. And that's because we have removed the Aether Ironweave. We have removed the Null Rune Robe. We have removed all 3 copies of Red Mauvrin Sky and Blue Mauvrin Skies. We've removed our 3 meet and greets and we removed our 3 Runeblood incantations. And what we did instead is we put in 3 Machinations of Dominion, which is from Rosetta, 3 Succumb to Temptation, which is from Rosetta, 3 Swarming Gloomveil, which is like a Runeblade staple. Card's crazy good. I should have picked my copies up when they were like $15 at the time, because now they're like $30 a piece. And then Snuff Out, another new Majestic from Rosetta. So those are all cards that are going back in the deck to replace these guys here. And then your chest piece, we're going to add in a Final Spring Tunic. Again, if you bought all the stuff from Dorinthia before, you already have a Final Spring Tunic. If you played any of the heroes that already need a Spring Tunic, you have one already. So you can cut this whole cost out of this entire deck. And then we have a Dyadic Carapace. Dyadic Carapace is currently very, very expensive on the market right now because Runeblades are so popular, but this card was like $20 at some point. So it could go lower. Don't worry about it. So we're adding in 2 legendaries to our equipment suite, a bunch of Majestics, and then we're getting rid of a bunch of these more commons and rares, and then kind of just increasing that power level for about $350 more. So Spring Tunic is great. Obviously, if you don't know what it does, you put an energy counter on here at the beginning of your turn. Once you have 3 energy counters, you can remove them to create a free resource at instant speed. Super great. You can do it throughout the course of the game. Very powerful. Love to see it there. And then as far as Dyadic Carapace, this is your replacement to the Arcane Barrier chest piece of Null Rune Robe. Because this has Arcane Barrier 2, it also has Temper 2. So if you're going against a deck that maybe has a little bit more powerful on hits, or maybe things you just want to make sure that you're able to block out so you can come in with a very powerful turn, Dyadic Carapace might be the card to go for you because it does have Temper 2. But most of the times, if you're just going into Wizards or shoot, even sometimes Rune Blades, Arcane Barrier is a pretty good shot there for that. So now let's take a look at the other cards we added in here, right? We did add in Snuff Out. The reason we added in Snuff Out is because this allows for that disruption that we were talking about. Snuff Out's a 1-cost 5 power card, blocks for 3, and it's got, you know, some of my favorite art on the entirety of. I'm still not sure who these people are, but I know that like that's it's such a beautiful, beautiful piece, and you know they were testing buddies. Let's just put it that way. They were testing buddies. That's what this is. But when this hits a hero, you may destroy an aura you control. If you do, they discard a card. So whenever you are playing Snuff Out, you more than likely have already played a Runeblade non-attack action, or just a non-attack action in general. And that means that when you play Snuff Out, you'll be creating a rune chant on the back end for you to keep. So if this does hit, you can destroy that rune chant and they get to discard a card. If it doesn't hit, you still get a rune chant. So it's a win-win. Then we're going to go ahead and add in that Succumb to Temptation. Succumb to Temptation, again, more discard effects. The less cards our opponents have in their hand, the less powerful things they can do on their turn. So Succumb to Temptation is a great choice here because if you've dealt arcane damage this turn, you can play it as though it were an instant. If you do play it as though it were an instant, you do also get your action point back with this Go Again. So keep that in mind. If you're going to play something like a Shrill of Skullform and you don't have Go Again on it, you can, as long as you've dealt arcane damage this turn, you can play it as an instant in the reactions. You'll get your action point back as Go Again. And then if this hits, if Shrill Skullform hits, or the next time a Runeblade attack action card hits, more specifically, till the end of the turn, you get to look at a card in their hand and then they discard it. You get to look at their whole hand and say, hey, I don't want that card in your hand, get rid of it. Succumb to Temptation is super great, really just throws off the entire competition. And I really think that this card is like, I mean, this card climbed up to like $20. Very powerful. And it's a yellow, and it blocks 3, and it costs 0. The card's good. We'll look at Swarming Gloomveil next. This is a card from Everfest, so quite a while back. But Swarming Gloomveil is a really powerful Majestic. It's been used in Runeblades for a very long time, simply because in most cases you are creating auras, and if you are creating auras, Swarming Gloomveil just gets better. So if you have played a non-attack action, and then you play Swarming Gloomveil, you are going to go ahead, if you created one or more aura, if you played or created one or more auras this turn, it'll get Go Again. If you've played or created 2 or more, it gets +1. And if you've played and created 3 or more, it gains when this hits a hero, they can't prevent arcane damage from sources you control this turn. This is very effective because in most cases, this is going to be a 0 for 4 Go Again, which is great because you're going to play a non-attack action like Mordred Tide, and then you're going to play, freaking, what do you call it? Swarming Gloomveil. And so when you play Swarming Gloomveil, you're going to make 2 rune chants on the back end, and this is going to be a 0-cost 4-power Go Again card that blocks 3. But with Malefic Incantation in the mix, it's a little bit cooler because you can play Malefic Incantation as your non-attack action. Then you can play Swarming Gloomveil. Swarming Gloomveil looks for auras. Malefic Incantation is an aura. So you've already played or created 1 aura with Malefic Incantation. You then attack with Swarming Gloomveil. You create a rune chant from Viserai, and then you create a rune chant from Malefic Incantation because you are playing an attack action. So now Swarming Gloomveil has that third effect simply by playing the deck. So very effective, and if you're trying to really close out games, having them not be able to prevent arcane damage is like the way to do it. So very powerful. And then finally, our last Majestic adding in here is a Machinations of Dominion. Machinations of Dominion, it's machinations. I grew up saying Machina my whole life, so Machina is what it is. But 0 cost, 3 block, blue card. Again, fantastic rate. But the next Runeblade attack action card you play this turn gets Overpower, and if you played or created an aura this turn, it gets Go Again. Again, this is really cool because you can play Machinations. You can then go ahead and play something like Thrill of Skullform. This comes in for 7 because you'll be creating an aura from Viserai, and it also will be getting Overpower from Machinations, and it will be getting Go Again from Machinations because you created a rune chant from Viserai. So that one rune chant made Shrill of Skullform a 2 cost, 7 power Go Again with Overpower. What else can I say? This is just good. It's just good value. So, and you're looking for, you can do stuff like that with Snuff Out. You can do stuff like that with, hit the high notes, or you can do it with Amplify. Any of those are fantastic choices, and you're going to be able to get a ton of value out of that. So the good news is that for $350 more, you can tweak this deck to be significantly more competitive. You'll have several legendaries to play around with. And if you look at the stats, in Runeblades, you kind of want to play almost like a half and half. You have 36 attack actions and 30 non-attack actions, so right around there. But of course, we are playing, we're showing 72 cards in the main deck, so you can easily go ahead and change out some of those cards for sideboard options, depending on how many non-attack actions and how many attack actions you want in the deck to kind of really make it your own. But that is effectively now my full guide on the $100 hero version of Viserai Runeblood. So thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I got a lot of great feedback from the $100 hero series we did for Dorinthia, and a lot of people were really excited to see some other heroes get shown in this light. I chose Viserai because I saw when Nick Gabler had won the Battle Hardened Milwaukee with his Viserai build, I looked at it and I went, wow, that's just a lot of commons and rares for the most part. And I just was like, okay, cool. What can I do with that? Let's just take all the good, powerful rares and commons in Runeblade, slap them in a deck, add a couple Majestics where I can, add maybe a Legendary where I can, and bada bing, bada boom, we have $100 Viserai. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to have the link to this deck in the description down below for you guys to check out. And of course, leave some feedback if there's anything inside this deck that you feel like maybe could be tweaked a little bit. There's not a ton of room for tweaking outside of like adding a higher budget for the more expensive version of Viserai, but outside of that, I think that the main deck is in a pretty good spot, especially with the Swarmings and the Revels and everything. I think it's in a very, very good spot. But if there's anything you guys would change, feel free to let me know. I'd be more than happy to hear about it in the comments down below. And while you're down there writing that comment, go ahead and make sure to give that like button a little smooch. You can also go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We are growing in subscribers very quickly, so always appreciative of all of you in the Flesh and Blood community for supporting my channel in any way you can. Speaking of that, if you wanted to, you could also become a channel member. Channel members do get access to our podcast, The Common Language, earlier than everyone else does. You also get access to emotes and loyalty badges. And I think I'm going to be doing some kind of channel member giveaways at some point here. So hopefully, if you wish to be a part of that, I'll make an announcement for it sometime in the future here on the channel, and you guys will be able to be informed of that. But otherwise, I'm always thankful whether or not you guys become channel members or you are just a wonderful subscriber. You're all my fantastic Ashwings, and I'm happy to have you here with me. So thank you all so much again, and I really do appreciate your support. And remember to always have fun in the flesh and blood. And I will see all of your beautiful faces in our next $100 Hero video.